I took one printmaking course, and within about a month and a half, I was addicted.
I think you're probably famous for the blue-footed boobies, and everybody just likes to say boobies. So right?
I remember seeing some of the samples of your work, and I just thought it was amazing.
Actually, as I get older, I've diagnosed myself with ADD.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever the case for you is at this particular time. This is the Emerging Artist Podcast. I'm joined here by Shiree Ingram and our guest today, Katie Gianni. Katie is a contemporary artist who loves to specialize in wildlife painting. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are so pleased to have you here, Katie. And Shiree is very much excited to discuss your business. And I think that would be so cool to have our listeners be able to drop in a little bit and understand how it is that you're finding your way through your business life as a contemporary artist and how your business works. I know there's some particular topics that we're going to definitely want to hit on today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to discussing a bunch of different things.
Yes, maybe just for our listeners a little bit, you were working at Diane Devant and Associates in Stuart, Florida.
Yeah, I think it was back in, I want to say 2015 or 16. I think I started working there sometime in July of 2015. It was shortly after me and my husband had moved down here. And if I remember correctly, you were doing many different client jobs at that time, because I remember seeing you in and out. And at the time, I wasn't really sure what you did. I knew you did some faux finishing, but I remember seeing some of the samples that a couple of the designers had of your work with all of the glass beads and the textures, and I just thought it was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do a lot of different things. I think I actually, as I get older, I've diagnosed myself with ADD. And I think that's why I'm all over the board and I can just do a lot of different things. And I actually do love that. I like being able to go from canvas to walls, abstract to just very soft watercolor murals. And so I think that's a lot of fun. And I think the first time actually I realized that you were an artist, I started following you on Instagram. And to me, your artwork, your style is so unique. I've never personally seen anybody that does exactly what you do, and your precision is incredible. Can you describe to our listeners what your style is and how you got here? I'd love to hear about your journey when you got started as an artist.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I should go back. I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in printmaking. So I initially started as a photography major, and I took one printmaking course, and within about a month and a half, I was addicted. I loved the process. I loved just the overall look that you got. Each print, when you're running it through a press, is different depending on how much pressure, the type of paper, the type of ink. And I really fell in love with it. Not to mention, it was both a messy and a very clean art form. So it really piqued my interest. I think there was me and one other girl in the entire university majoring in printmaking at the time. So it was pretty much just us in the studio all day, every day. We had a ball. We were creating all sorts of things, big, small, and I really loved it. So once I graduated, a short time after that, I married my husband in October of 2014. And we were young, we were poor, and we decided to move to Florida to get out of New Jersey and try living on our own somewhere else. I was born down here originally, and I spend most of my time up in New Jersey, but we were very familiar with the area, so we thought it would be a safe option to try. Plus, we have lots of family and friends down here. And my husband transferred, so he was lucky enough to have a job. And at the time, I had no idea what I was going to do. I have a background. I worked for a luxury home builder on Long Beach Island. So I started looking at contractors' offices, interior designers, and that's when I saw the listing for Diane Devant and Associates for an assistant. So I took that position, absolutely loved the ladies in that office. I had such a ball working there. And it also gave me some extra time in the evenings. I was experimenting with art. I didn't have a studio anymore. We had a really tiny apartment. So we converted the little dining space into my studio. So I was experimenting with watercolor. I was doing little interior illustrations, and I really started to miss printmaking. I wound up getting a bottle of black India ink and some paper, and I just started doodling and creating some designs and patterns that I would do with lino cuts and woodblock printing. And I remember the first thing that I did in my current style, it was a collection of primitive teapots. So they were just simple black and white, really blobby, asymmetrical, imperfect teapots. And I added some white lines and I started doing some designs on it. And I remember looking at it and I'm like, this is fun. Like, this is super cool. It's not printmaking, but it's something that's very close to what I'm looking for. And it just branched off from there. I was doing little objects. I started painting birds. We're in a beautiful state for birds. So I always had cranes and herons outside my window. So I was taking pictures, painting them. And then it just exploded from there. I started messing with color. I started looking at different patterns in nature, oriental rugs. I picked up a book about rugs and I remember flipping through for patterns. So I was getting inspiration from that as well. And like I said, it just went from there. And now I do all sorts of fun colors, patterns, I layer textures. And so as far as naming the design style, I just typically say I do ink paintings. I don't do any repros or prints at the time. So everything is original. It's all pretty much done with Bombay, India inks, acrylic inks. Sometimes I'll use different acrylic mediums if I'm looking to do something more textured. And all of my pieces are accented with either gold leaf, gold metal leaf, silver leaf, because I love that little bit of shine for some of the details. It really makes them come alive.
Yes, I am so impressed. And I too see you have a wide range in that you do as well. A few years back, you completely changed and did a lot of abstract. And I thought your abstract also just very unique, very different as well. And I love, of course, I think you're probably famous for the blue-footed boobies. And
Yeah.
they're hard to get, as I recently asked you about. And so I think I'm on a waiting list, but yeah, those, and everybody just likes to say boobies. So right?
I've affectionately been named the booby lady. I get that on social media, my friends, my family, my coworkers, but I'll accept it. I love it. And it's so funny. I did those. I'm trying to remember what zoo it was. I think it was the Bronx Zoo or something, but I was at a zoo. They had two of them and they were in a facility. They were rehabbing and I took a couple pictures of them on a whim. I wasn't planning on painting them. And I was getting a little bored with some herons and I did some peacocks. And I went back on my phone and I'm like, oh, I should try to paint one of these. And the reference photos I had were awful. They were blurry because the birds were moving around. So I went online and I studied, 50 to 75 photos, the positions, the way they moved, because they're so quirky and cute and they're just really funny looking. And I love them. So I painted one and I posted it online and the response was like huge. I thought it was hysterical. And I'm like, I guess I should paint a couple more. And I wound up selling all of those paintings, but they were on the small side, maybe like 11 by 14. They weren't anything big. But then I started getting more requests for them. Next thing I know, I think I'm up to like maybe 180 to 190 blue-footed booby paintings.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So yeah, and that's big and small. I've done them as small as 5 by 7 where they were really tiny. I did collection of maybe 10 of those. And then I think the largest one I've done now is slightly over 20 by 24. And that was a commission from last year. So it still cracks me up. I love that other people love them. They make them happy. They make me happy. I have a couple of them hanging in my studio. But I'll be painting the boobies probably forever. I love it.
The joy that you have in doing it, it definitely is reflected in the paintings. You can see that. And it just, yeah, so well done. I love it.
Thank you.
What things do you do to get inspired?
Wow. Well, one of my favorite things, and I've had a great joy in this since I was a kid, is interior design. I love interiors. I have hundreds of interior design books. I watch so many TV shows, but I like to see what's trending, colors, patterns, and then I incorporate that with my love of animals. Like I said before, living in Florida, it's not just birds. We have beautiful wildlife, fish, really great reptiles, insects. So I try to take reference photos when I'm out and about whenever I can. My husband and I usually a couple times a year, we'll try to go to some state parks and some zoos. My Jacksonville Zoo is actually one of my favorite places for reference photos because I really enjoy animals. And so between that, studying interior design, different patterns, color trends, and then I'll just put them together. I have a big notebook and I'll just keep a list of different patterns that I really enjoy. What animal would this really look great with, whether if it's an ocean creature or a land mammal. And I sketch them out. I'll come up with some designs, some design concepts, and then I just go from there. And honestly, sometimes I'll just be driving in the car and out of nowhere, an idea will pop in my head. And if I don't write it down within the next 5 minutes, it's gone. So I try to stay on top of that. But I'm really like, just where we live is like my biggest, there's just such beautiful nature around us. So
Scott and I both feel that way. We talked about that actually on another podcast, how we both are influenced. Don't you feel like nature is probably your biggest inspiration?
Without a doubt. Yeah, just being able to look around Southwest Florida and see the variety of wildlife and even the way the sun shines through the canopy of trees sometimes is just so beautiful. And you can't help but think that there's some other creation that can spawn from that when you're looking at it. It's just
absolutely.
yeah.
So when you started as an artist, like the business side of it, how was that, the transformation when you first started doing the teapots and then you actually decided that you wanted this as a business?
Well, it was definitely a process. I remember when I was working for Diane DeVant and Associates, at the time, I was doing it as a hobby. I really had no intention of doing it professionally until about, I'd say, the end of 2016. And at that time, I will say I'm very much into the creative part of the business. I knew nothing about business, and I can laugh at it now, but it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, Katie, you should have started with this. You should have done this differently. It was a learning process. I'm very thankful because I had a lot of people guiding me and giving me suggestions as to how to handle certain things. I figured out how to start. Then I'm still learning, to be honest with you. I do not know everything, but it was, again, very slow process. I didn't realize how much the business side of it as for being an artist is just as important as the creative side, if not more important. I think I actually spend more of my time now on the business side, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet. I try to keep better reports now than I have in the past. And because my business has exploded in the last year and a half, it went from, oh, this is manageable to suddenly like, oh no, you really have to get serious about this and start looking. So I've been getting some books and studying more about everything. It can get very overwhelming. And like I said, I'm still trying to figure some things out because just the last year and a half has changed dramatically.
I think it is a constant transformation. I know my own contract is always changing, and it often has to do with experiences with clientele that cause you to make those adjustments to your contract.
It's so true because from a standpoint of the art making, we're so creative, but you can never think up the crazy things that clients are going to do. Like it is a reactive kind of process to refine those contracts. And it always was just funny to me because the situations are like, wow, I did not ever see that coming. Like that this particular client would behave that way or do this or that. And then you're like, okay, I got to revise that contract and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, definitely.
You had mentioned seeing some of my sample boards when we first met. And so one of the things that I didn't previously have spelled out in my contract that has changed is that I've had clients, when I bring a portfolio, they think that the sample boards that they looked at, they got to keep.
Oh.
I was so surprised by that, but I've actually had a fair amount of people that had thought that and were very upset that they didn't get to keep the sample board. And sometimes they wanted them because they were going to frame them and use them as artwork. And so I have just made them their own sample board and just given it to them as a gift. But now I have that actually in the contract that I create sample boards for their project if need be, and they are owned by me. That's one of the things
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that has transformed. What do you feel like some of your biggest challenges has been as far as the business of art?
I think there's a couple different things. In the beginning, for me, it was my expenses, actually. The amount of supplies that I use for my paintings, especially with ink, I use a lot of it. And in the beginning, I was buying my supplies, and stupid Katie at the time was not business savvy. I was not really keeping track of too many of my receipts. I wasn't technically a legal business entity yet either. I wasn't charging appropriately. So I was putting all this time and a lot of materials into my pieces. And I'm thinking to myself, why aren't I making a lot of money? And I'm like, Katie, you got to do something about it. Adjusting pricing so I'm actually making money and not just doing it for fun was a process. And now that was in the beginning. So that's all well and good. Now I'm still struggling with I think just a lot of the record keeping, and I do a lot of art. I sell a lot of it, like I said, especially in the last year and a half. I do a lot of donations. I do a lot of private events too. I'll create special pieces for different things like that. And like I said before, I wasn't keeping tabs on it. Now I definitely do. But I think that's probably the biggest thing. Time management also. I work technically two full-time jobs. So finding a healthy work-life balance is definitely a struggle. I'm working through it. I'm hoping for 2024 it is a little bit better. But that's also a big thing, is just finding time to sit down and not do business stuff, not do work, and just take time for myself.
I think that sounds wonderful, and congratulations. If people wanted to follow you, where would they find you on social medias? And can you spell your name for everybody and all that so they know where to find you?
Absolutely. So my first name, again, it's just Katie, Katie. Last name is Gianni, Gianni. My Instagram is art.katiegianni. And I'm just Katie Gianni Art on Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest. I'm in all sorts of different fun apps. And my website is www.katiegianniart.com. That has my full portfolio. I have a new online shop that I just launched this past year, which is a little sparse at the moment, but I'm hoping to have more things added in the next couple of months.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining Scott and I. It's just been a real pleasure to visit with you and pick your brain a little bit about what all you do as an artist. And I just hope the very best for you in 2024.
Aw, thank you.
All right. Awesome. We're wishing everybody a fantastic rest of their days. And if you guys would like to learn more, I strongly urge you to reach out to Shiree Nichole. The best way to do that is to go to ShireeNichole.com. That's ShireeNichole.com. There you can engage with Shiree through some of her courses. Of course, the coaching is phenomenal. I would recommend that. And I invite anybody who wants to start a photography or video business to reach out to me, Scott Markowitz. And the best way to do that is to go to reinventionstudiolab.com. And there you'll find some resources and some ways to interact with me. And I would love to be your coach as well. Shiree, I know you're anxious to help some of the emerging artists out there with their fledgling businesses. And to all you emerging artists out there, rock on.
Yes.
All right. Excellent.